Welcome to episode 35 of Shane Talks 99, August 13th of 1999. What do we do after that blockbuster weekend we just talked about last week? Well, let's calm things down and release some mediocre subpar movies that follow that up. Summer's starting to come to an end, and Hollywood is just dumping out some films here and there as like box office attendance is dwindling down and college kids are getting ready to go back to school. Like movie theater staffs are starting to get cut in half. A lot of our employees going off to college, and some of us, like myself, back in 1999, were not going off to school. We were staying as the full-time employees for this end of summer, end of the fall type thing. So somebody had to stick around and man the box office and the concession stand for movies like the three we have to talk about this week. So, first one we're going to talk about is a movie that's about making movies. And in 1999, I had high hopes for that. And I remember being pretty disappointed. Like, it's an okay movie, but it's not amazing. So I was really curious how my revisit to the movie Bowfinger was going to go this week. And honestly, it kind of goes the same. It's not a bad movie. Like this movie doesn't suck in any way. It's got some moments. Like I laughed a lot more than I remember laughing back in '99. So like, it definitely is still a fun and enjoyable movie. Steve Martin wrote the movie. It got directed by Frank Oz. Yeah, Yoda himself directed this movie. And Steve Martin stars as his wannabe film producer who has a friend write a sci-fi action alien invasion movie called Chubby Rain, and Bowfinger sets out to try to get this movie made. In a small part of this movie, we have Robert Downey Jr. That's right, Iron Man himself shows up in this movie. Iron Man himself, who did four different movies in 1999. He plays in this one a Universal Studios executive who offers to distribute the movie Chubby Rain if Bowfinger gets Kit Ramsey, the biggest action star in Hollywood, if he gets him to be in the movie. So Bowfinger comes up with this crazy plot to get Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy plays Kit Ramsey in the movie. He comes up with this plot to get him to be in the movie without realizing that he's in the movie. So like he organizes ways to film scenes with his actors with Kit Ramsey, but like Kit Ramsey's never read a script, so they're just filming like his real reactions to these actors coming up and talking to him. And then like Eddie Murphy does double duty in this movie because not only is he Kit Ramsey, he ends up playing a lookalike of Kit Ramsey, who they end up having to hire later on in the production when they need some other stuff filmed and they don't have access to Kit Ramsey anymore. And then, of course, because of a Hollywood plot device, we learned that these two characters played by Eddie Murphy are actually brothers. And so then that kind of comes into play for the rest of the script. So, like, a lot of this movie is just like set up on gags with Kit Ramsey. Like I said, he doesn't know that he's involved in this movie being made. So, like, a lot of the humor comes from these random people running up and saying lines to him and then how he reacts to it. Because, like I said, it's not in the script. So they just kind of have to deal with however he takes the things that are being said to him. And then later on in the movie, once they have to use Jiff, who is Kit Ramsey's twin brother, when they have to use him, then a lot of the humor comes from his reactions to not being an actor, but being like in these situations that they would be trying to have Kit in a movie. Like it it has its moments. I'm not gonna lie. Like again, this isn't a bad movie. I don't hate this movie in any way. I just feel a little disappointed and let down in it. I really tend to like movies that are about making movies, and I just kind of wanted more from this one. So like, it's okay. There's two actresses that star in Chubby Rain with Kit. One of them is the seasoned actress Christine Baranski, who did appear in another 1999 film where she played Selma Blair's mother in Cruel Intentions. We also have Felicity Shagwell herself. Miss Heather Graham plays a young and naive girl who kind of ends up sleeping with a lot of the cast and crew members on the movie. Kind of, a little extension of her Boogie Nights character there. Kind of a very promiscuous young girl in Hollywood. A couple other big names in this movie. Scream star Jamie Kennedy. He's kind of got a mediocre role in the movie. I'm happy to see Jamie Kennedy working. I don't really care for his character very much. I think he's a little dumber than I would prefer his character to be, but it is what it is. And then we've got the brilliant actor Terrence Stamp, who previously in 1999 played Chancellor Valorum in The Phantom Menace. He plays the leader of this like Scientology cult who have like Kit Ramsey living in this like super paranoid state. Um, there's some kind of fun stuff with that. I think I didn't appreciate Scientology jokes as much back then as I do now. So I think I kind of got that humor a little bit more with the scenes that involve Terrence Stamp. Two like small cameo-ish. I mean, they're not even really like cameos in this movie, but like they were young actors and actresses at the time who weren't very big and well known. But there is a one single scene with John Cho in this movie, who also in 1999 was in American Pie. Quite a more memorable role for him in that movie. And one of the actresses that auditions for the movie is played by Marisol Nichols, who was in Scream 2, Can't Hardly Wait, went on to do Riverdale years down the road. Um, but like this was one of her earlier things. She'd go on to do a bunch of TV shows and then some like long-term TV appearances and whatnot. But like kind of cool to see both of them pop up for a couple of minutes in this movie. And like Bowfinger has its moments. Like I said earlier, it's a movie about making movies, and as somebody who has made low budget and independent movies, like I enjoy that in most stories when it's being told that way, but like I just don't love this one because it kind of just falls short for me. And while I did laugh, and while I enjoy the triumph of these characters completing their movie and putting everything together, like I just both in 1999 and now wanted a little bit more from the movie. Like I'm sorry to realize that a lot of like Steve Martin's stuff that he wrote when he was younger, I really enjoyed more. I don't know if maybe he had more input from people, or if maybe by the end of the 90s he was just trying to write this stuff that he hadn't done before. But a lot of his like later 90s stuff that he wrote and then starred in, I didn't really care for it as much as some of his earlier works that he wrote and did. Because I mean, like the dude, like literally everything that he writes, he puts himself in. So he's literally writing it with him in mind. So maybe by the late 90s, he was just getting to a point where he was tired of doing, the same stuff that he's always done. Not that that's an excuse for why this plot suffers so much, but it's just not as well rounded as I think it should have been. Again, it's not bad. It was a fun rewatch. Just not anything that I love, and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to watch that again. So let's move on to our second film this weekend. We got a flick that takes us back to the 1970s. So that was like a 20-year jump back in 1999. Now we're looking at like a 45-year jump back to the 70s. Oh my God, I'm so old. But anyway, or it's like almost it's like 45 years. So anyway, it's about four kids trying to go to a Kiss concert. And like Detroit Rock City is a solid, like fun throwback, like 1980s adventure movie. Like nothing that happens in this plot is believable. I mean, like okay, there's some believable stuff, but like it's just like a wild road trip adventure for these four kids that get thrown in all these like bizarre situations that again are not anything that would happen in reality, but like it's just a fun ride to go on. Like you got these four kids that bought tickets to a Kiss show. One of their moms finds out about it and she ends up burning the tickets. Like she's this uber religious freak, claims that it's the devil's music, and so like she just sets on fire the four tickets. Which I mean, I don't know how you could get away with that now. Like that'd be like some child labor or some child, whatever laws being broken now, like child mistreatment or whatever I'm trying to say. Anyway, she burns these tickets, and so the kids lose the tickets. And then a radio station is having a giveaway where you can call in and get four tickets, and one of the characters does, and he wins, but he hangs up the phone before he gives them his contact information. So later on in the story, you learn that they gave the tickets away to somebody else because they didn't know who won the tickets. Um, it's just this whole misadventure of these kids trying to get these tickets. So they drive to Detroit and they decide that they're just going to get some scalper tickets, and when they get there, the prices are ridiculous, and they don't have the money for it. So then the four kids decide to go out on their own, figure out how to earn some money, so they can all come back together and buy these scalper tickets. One of the kids, he ends up going into this church because his mom, the uber religious one, is happens to be there also and catches him and takes him to talk to a priest. But while he's there, the girl that he's had a crush on the whole time is also in Detroit and sees him go into the church. So she follows him in there and they have sex in the confessional booth. Like again, bizarre, crazy, bonkers stuff, but it makes fun for like a teenage boy's fantasy movie. So like there's another kid who one of the kids' mom's cars gets stolen. And so like then when he's wandering around, he finds the car at this like chop shop where these two guys had stolen the car, and then one of the female characters was asleep in the back seat. So now they've got her tied up, and they're making all kinds of like awkward, creepy rape jokes towards her about like what they're gonna do to her after they strip the car, and then they're gonna strip her and like all kinds of bonkers stuff like that. So he has to go in there and save the day and take down the two guys and save the girl. Yeah, another kid that goes into a gas station and he like tries to rob this kid who's in like Kiss makeup, only to find out that this little kid has like a huge, super jacked up, muscular older brother and his two buddies that end up, beating the shit out of this kid in the alley. And then our kid goes back into the convenience store to rob the place, but while he's getting ready to pull the mask down to rob the place, a guy actually comes in to rob the place with a shotgun. So then he has a fight with him, saves the day, wins the affection of the girl that's behind the counter who's been sucking on her sucker very sexually every time we see her. Like, then what's last? What's last? We've got, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We have the kid who ends up going to this male strip club, who ends up putting on this sort of sexy performance against all these other stripper dudes because he's trying to win the money for, winning the competition, which he does not win. Spoiler alert. Sorry, most of this episode is a spoiler alert for a lot of stuff, but we end up meeting the Kmart version of Stifler's mom, which I mean, that's like not really fair to say about this character because it is played by kind of an uber MILF, Playboy's Playmate of the Month in 1982, Shannon Tweed, plays I call her the Kmart, Stifler's mom, but like she was hot at one point, but just she wasn't the same level of hot that Jennifer Coolidge was in the summer of 1999. And like Shannon Tweed being in this movie makes a lot of sense because, like I said, she was very attractive, in 1982. But at the time, and I actually think still to this day, she was married to Gene Simmons of Kiss fame. So, like, it makes sense that they put her in this movie. Anyway, she ends up banging Edward Furlong and then giving him money, and like he tries to not take it, like he's a gigolo now or whatever. But she's like, I want you to have this money for whatever you were trying to get money for. And so like it's cool. And so Edward Furlong, I haven't even mentioned like the actors in this movie yet. Edward Furlong. Obviously everybody knows the dude from Terminator 2. So we got actually the year before in 1998, he was in one of the best films I've ever seen in my entire life, which is American History X. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's literally in my top 10 movies of all time. We have also got a kid named Sam Huntington in this movie. And like when the movie started, I was like, I recognize this kid. I know this kid from something. And I looked it up. It's because he was Jimmy Olsen in one of the Superman movies. That I think it was the Brett Ratner one, whatever the one in 2006 was. He was Jimmy Olsen in that one, which I didn't really care for. But then he was also in the super disappointing Star Wars movie called Fanboys. Then he went on to do a bunch of TV work. He's one of those faces where like I saw him and I was like, I know this kid, but I can't remember what I knew him from. So that's who that is. We've also got a kid in this movie named James DeBello, who I often refer to as the poor man's Jason Mewes. In this movie, he had long hair, super stoner attitude, and he just like seemed like he was put in this movie to literally appeal to the people who like Jay and Silent Bob. Like he's uber Jay, but like a discount version of him. This dude was also in American Pie in 1999. He was one of the classmates watching the internet broadcast, so really just small, tiny part there. Finally, our fourth kid is a guy named Giuseppe Andrews, who really had a good run in 1999 because he was also in the movie The Other Sister, and also in Never Been Kissed this year. So good run for Giuseppe in 1999. There's a lot of good women to talk about in this movie. I did not remember that the absolutely stunning Melanie Linsky was in this film. She is literally like always a darling in everything she does. She's like a super cute young, I don't want to call her naive, but like really enjoyable like main female lead in this movie for the boys, or well, one of the boys is object of affection. This was a year before she went on to do Coyote Ugly, so like when she popped up and I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. I didn't remember she was in this movie. It was really fun to watch her a couple of scenes that she's in. Also from American Pie this year, Natasha Lyonne has a pretty big part in this movie. Pre-Entourage, Emmanuel Shrieky appears in one scene in this movie also. So aside from that, I've already mentioned Shannon Tweed. There are some other big cameos in this movie. Ron Jeremy, the porn star, is in this movie. Lynn Shay, who's a huge name in the horror and a couple of different horror franchises in this movie. And then there's a guy named Joe Flaherty. He's of Freaks and Geeks fame. The father in Freaks and Geeks is absolutely amazing. I don't really care for his character in this movie. He plays the creepy father, priest, pastor, whatever he is in this movie. Kind of a little over the top creepy for me, but like I always like seeing Joe Flaherty do work. So and like I said earlier, like this is like a John Hughes style adventure film. Like it's over the top, it's ridiculous, it's bonkers. None of this stuff is like in any way set in reality, but like it reminds me of either like a John Hughes movie or something like Adventures in Babysitting is probably what I would like compare this to. Like just a wild, crazy adventure that these kids go on. Like I mean, I guess it could be like considered like Goonies. Like the Goonies is like not anything that any group of kids would ever actually get involved with, but it makes for really good and fun storytelling, and it's all set to the music of Kiss. So let's talk about the soundtrack for a minute because obviously there's a lot of Kiss on it. And I'm not a huge Kiss fan. I don't dislike Kiss in any way. Kiss is fine. Kiss has a lot of music that's enjoyable. All the Kiss songs that are in this movie, I know and I enjoy. Like I think they're good. I can't tell you like what songs are on what albums or anything like that, but I enjoy Kiss music when Kiss music is used. So this movie also has some other great bands involved in it. The soundtrack includes Van Halen, Black Sabbath, David Bowie, Cheap Trick, Thin Lizzy. The Runaways are on the soundtrack. Like just a lot of good, fun music that's used really well in the movie. So again, wild ride, wild adventure. The one thing I don't remember happening in the movie theater, and maybe it's just because I'm old now, the audio mix on the version I watched was weird because I would have trouble hearing the dialogue, so I would turn up the volume when people were talking, or it was just like a normal scene. As soon as any music kicked in, it was insanely loud, and I'd have to turn the volume down. And so, like, my rewatch was just a little annoying for that fact that I didn't feel like it was a good audio mix. And it's possible that that was done on purpose. It's possible that they wanted you to have like an overly loud musical experience, which is possible. And maybe I'm just too old for that because, like I said, in 1999, I don't remember that being an issue. It's possible. It could have been a thing. Well, so anyway, let's move on to our third movie to talk about, and let's jet halfway around the world with Claire Danes and Kate Beckinsale, two girls who are supposed to be going to Hawaii, but Claire convinces Kate to go to Thailand instead. But don't tell your dad that we're going. I can't even remember what the logic is behind that. But they decide to go to Thailand instead of Hawaii, where they end up getting into a little trouble. And you know what? Before I get into this movie, full disclosure, the honest truth is I'm a little disappointed in myself because I got this movie confused with a different movie. I thought that I was going to be watching a movie called Return to Paradise, um, based on the title and not remembering them. That's what I thought I was getting into. And Return to Paradise was a 1998 movie that came out, and it's about a couple of friends that go to Malaysia. While they're in Malaysia, two of the three friends decide to come back to the United States. Once they get back here, a couple of years go by, they find out that their third somebody shows up. I can't remember even who shows up. Somebody shows up and tells them, "Hey, your buddy that you left in Malaysia, he's actually now in prison now. He's going to be serving this huge long sentence unless you guys both come back and serve part of the sentence, like a couple of years. Like it's like I don't know, 30 years if he does it all, or it's like they all have to do 3 years or so. It's something weird like that." And so like that was the movie that I thought Broke Down Palace was. I obviously got that confused, so I was a little disappointed. And now I really kind of just want to go back and rewatch Return to Paradise now, because I was really kind of excited because I remember it being emotionally good and probably better than Broke Down Palace, but I didn't end up getting to watch it. So I'm a little disappointed that that I got those movies confused because that's me being dumb. This is a movie from 1999. I should have known it better than I did. But yeah, just getting them confused kind of disappoints me. But I got another movie to go rewatch now from 1998 and hopefully make that happen. But anyway, what I did watch was Broke Down Palace. And before I go too much further, what I want to say is this movie is unfortunately very unbalanced. And at times I don't think the script knew what it was doing. Now, it's possible that that was like the intention of the writer and how he wanted this narrative to go. Maybe, but like it just doesn't play very well for me as the viewer. Like I don't enjoy what ends up going on because like it starts off as like this fun trip for two girls. Like Claire convinces Kate to go do some naughty stuff while they're in Thailand, and like they gain access to this private hotel, and they claim that they're in a room there so that all their drinks and everything will get billed to that room, and then they get caught, but then they have to run away from that situation, and so it's like it's Claire's character convincing Kate to do a bunch of stuff that like she wouldn't normally do because Kate's not like the straight-laced good girl, but she's very heavily influenced by Claire, who's obviously the rebel and the bad girl and who wants to like party up and have fun with life and stuff like that. Very like very bad girl behavior. Then it gets to this point where like we're introduced to this boy. And then like it becomes this really bizarre love triangle wannabe type movie thing where like he's playing both girls and trying to get both girls interested in him. And so then you don't know what's going on. Like, these girls are both like hanging out with this dude and like Claire Danes is kind of letting Kate Beckinsale have him when they're all together, but then Claire Danes is going behind her back to kind of get him on her own. And so like it's just this weird, bizarre, like where did this movie decide to go now with this? Oh, well then what we learn is it went that way because he was literally setting them up to go to Hong Kong with him. And when they decide to agree to do that, then all of a sudden they get caught at the airport smuggling drugs. Um, and that's just kind of how the whole movie plays out from there is like this situation where they're arrested, they're put in jail. They are claiming to be innocent. They're claiming they didn't know anything about the drugs, and just you think it's about to become like this big courtroom drama because like Bill Pullman shows up, and Bill Pullman's a lawyer, and he's taking money from the family to try to be able to help and protect these girls and to get them out of jail and to defend them, and then like at the same time, it just kind of becomes like this political corruption movie. And then you're like, oh, everybody in Thailand is politically corrupt, and like the guards are corrupt, and the judicial system is corrupt. And like Bill Pullman's trying to navigate through all of this to help and protect these girls. But like he also like really just cares about the money for himself. But you say that, but like that's kind of how they portray his character in the beginning, and like he tells them that he doesn't care about them, but then like as things go on, you're like, well, if you said that, then why are you going above and beyond with all this other stuff that you're doing? So like I don't really understand the motivation behind his character, and like the girls end up in jail, and we get a mini movie about how bad Americans are treated in prisons in other countries, and like they get to meet some of these other girls who are locked up and who've had other bad things happen to them, and they all claim that they're innocent and they were set up, and like all this stuff, and like you've just got like all these other female prisoners that start treating them really badly and doing bad things to them. So then you've got like all this female drama between them and stuff, and it's just like arguing and fighting and bickering and just all this it's so all over the place. It's a poor character study for what I think it was trying to character study, and I think the pacing is just really bad. Like it just doesn't know what it wants to be, and like after all this stuff that I'm saying about it, like the weird thing is when I rewatched it this week, I still think I like it more than I remembered liking it back then. Because even though I have all these problems with it, and like even though there's a lot of stuff that's off in this movie to me, Claire Danes and Kate Beckinsale's acting is actually really good in a very poor script. So like, and what I'll say, but what I mean by that specifically is like the resolution of this film and like the last 5 minutes of it, like carries a good amount of emotional weight and drama to it. And I think Claire Danes just gives an absolutely amazing performance. And like at the peak of the third act, she just goes above and beyond and just like carries it to the end. And like her character's story arc of being that bad girl, party girl, like, only caring about, what's fun and in the moment, makes a decision, has an impassionate speech, and you really realize that she kind of takes all that burden and weight that Claire Danes and her father, I'm sorry, that Kate Beckinsale and Kate Beckinsale's father's characters have put on her throughout the movie. She kind of just takes it all and decides to make a choice to kind of help free her friend. Well, I mean, essentially, literally free her friend from prison. And like, it's actually some really good acting there that I think carries this very, very mediocre film. Who I've talked about mainly the three people in this cast that matter. Lou Diamond Phillips does have a small part in this movie, but I hate his character. He's kind of a super douchebag in the movie. He acts it really well. I just don't like the character at all. And then the other interesting cameo, I guess, in this movie is Paul Walker shows up for one scene. I can't tell if he's like the boyfriend of one of the two girls or like why, or just like a classmate, or why he's also in Thailand at this point. But he's there. He visits them in prison. He says hi to them. Really makes me think that this movie might have been filmed years earlier before it was released, because like Paul Walker has already been like the star of She's All That and Varsity Blues in 1999. So how he just gets one scene in this movie, I mean, I don't completely understand that. So I've given a little bit of praise to Claire Danes as a big emotional breakdown, and like the other thing this movie does well that I kind of touched on is like their friendship and like their toxic friendship, and then like the emotional baggage between the two girls, and like they both have some really good and powerful scenes together, because there's a lot of the like bickering and I don't want to be your friend anymore moments in Act Two of this movie, but like what Kate Beckinsale's character does and what Kate Beckinsale's dad's character does, and like all the emotional baggage that they put on Claire Danes' character, like to get her to where she gets to in the end. Like, while it's not really well executed, I do think that the acting is probably the one thing that kind of just makes this not a complete garbage movie. Because again, the script obviously could have used a lot more work on it. So we do get two good performances from our lead actresses in this movie, and it's just a story and a script that needed a lot more work. So that's our three films this week. Another big three next week. Well, two out of three are going to be decent. Really excited to talk about Teaching Mrs. Tingle, Kevin Williamson movie that I have some good story, a good story about getting to watch before it opened, and the things that I saw that were different than the final version of the movie. Hugh Grant is back with a comedy called Mickey Blue Eyes. And then finally, I'm honestly not sure I'm going to rewatch this movie. I remember hating it. I don't remember anything good about it. And I don't really have any interest in going back and rewatching Universal Soldier 2 The Return. But maybe, I mean, we'll see. Maybe.